I don't know. I've just always kind of wanted to play that. I'm not going to make everybody wait for 30 seconds. I just see it there all the time. Give it something to do. Let's get started. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the one and only Rotohackers Podcast, where your unauthorized source of fantasy football news, information, and entertainment as well. My name is AJ Herschel, the kid, and right there it's Jared. And our normal host, Judah Buddha, is out, as we like to say, on assignment tonight. So he's going to give us his waiver wire pickups a little later, but it's just me and Jared running the show tonight. Jared, how you doing, sir?
Doing okay. Just looking at the fantasy football landscape of all my players that are either out or going to be on bye, and
yeah.
I kind of want to track down the person who made the NFL schedule, sort of like Liam Neeson style. And I don't know who you are,
right?
Where you are, but I will find you.
Yeah, it's absolutely a mess. There was a slew of injuries last week, and I think this is the week with the most bye weeks. I know we got Bills, Cowboys, Jaguars, Vikings, Steelers, and Chargers. So it's not even like we could get the Jets and the Jaguars and a couple other teams that nobody has players for. No, all your Josh Allens, all your Cowboys, your James Robinsons, they are all down for the week, which stinks because most of the teams that are out this week are the teams that had a running back you could play. So it's just sweet irony that we ended up with this. It's beautiful.
I have so much Mike Williams. I have so much James Robinson.
Yep.
Dak, Josh Allen, Amari Cooper. Ezekiel Elliott. I'm just sitting here like I have teams where I'm like I either have to just drop someone that I don't want to drop that doesn't need to be on the waiver wire, or just not fill that position because my IR spots are taken up. And so some teams, I don't know what I'm gonna. I am in one league starting Miles Sanders, which is something that I did not intend to do under any circumstances. But
yeah, story of my life this year starting Miles Sanders. But welcome to the club, I guess. But yeah, it's just absolutely brutal. How'd your team survive this past week then? How'd you do overall in fantasy this week?
So I've had my best 2 weeks the last 2 weeks.
Wow, nice.
I had a lot of like weeks at 500 early in the season, which is not terrible if you can have some weeks where you do really well and 2/3 or 3/4 your teams win or whatever. And so,
right.
So like, I forget how it breaks down, but basically like 3/4 of my teams are at least 500 or better. They're at least 3 or better. And then like half or a little more than half are 4-2 or 5-1.
Perfect.
So,
there you go.
So that's not bad. I'll take that. If anything, if you're 3-3, because this season is going to be a crazy season. There's going to be a lot of parity. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are just tight in tight playoff races in their leagues. So if I've got a team that's 3-3 at this point, like I'm okay with that. And even 2-4 is not terrible because a lot of the teams that are like in fourth place or so are 3-3. You're just one game out. So, so I've got some like, maybe a quarter of my teams are 2-4, but I mean, that's usually a game behind fourth place or something like that.
Right.
So I'm pretty okay with the way it's gone.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you?
every one of my teams is 500 or better except one. And granted, I'm not in as many leagues as you, obviously, but there's one which is pretty much a lost cause for them due to injuries. And that was what the league where I was like, you know what? I'm going to try something different. I'll draft players I don't normally draft. I'll take Ayuk and I'll take this person. And it reminded me why I have a strategy going into drafts. So I did something different and that team's bad. But other than that, all the others are 3-3, 3-3 or better. I've got 1-5-1 team and a couple of 4-2. So sitting in a good position for most of them, to the point where it's like, even if I'm 3-3, 4 other teams in the league are 3-3, and I prefer my team. So I feel like I'm doing all right so far. Yeah. But this week's going to be killer in at least like half of my leagues. It's going to be an absolute mess this week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing else to say about that. Justin, our man with Mello at his profile picture, says, yo, what's up, guys? What's up, Justin? Good to have you with us again. He asks, do I pick up Winston, Sam Darnold, or Danny Dimes, Jared's favorite waiver wire quarterback, to be his QB this week?
I don't know if he is. I don't know if he is anymore after the last couple of weeks and after and after all of the injuries to the Giants,
right?
It's a little bit different now without Saquon, Galladay, Tony, Slayton. Shepard's back for 5 minutes at least,
right?
Not feeling Danny Dimes as much. More so this week than against the Rams last week. But
absolutely.
But maybe not all that much after he's combined for not even quite 12 points in 2 weeks. So.
Right. Yeah. So and the funny thing about this is Darnold and Daniel Jones play each other this week. I think it's Panthers Giants who play each other. So you either take whoever you think's going to do better, or you go with Jameis Winston, who plays the Seahawks and has been just the weirdest fantasy quarterback in history, to the tune of multiple 13-point games, and then he'll drop a whopping 21. So what do you think, Jared? Do you like Winston or this disgusting Panthers-Giants matchup?
I would even say I'm going to go outside the box here. I don't know who's available on his waiver wire. Yeah. But there's some other guys I might give a try this week. I mean, guys are not rostered that much. I mean, if you're in a deeper league, then maybe they're not going to be available. But I would go probably over those. I would probably go look for somebody like Tua, who gets the Falcons. Teddy Bridgewater, who we've kind of forgotten about a little bit because he had a couple of rough weeks. 2 weeks in a row, he's basically averaged 20 points. Nearly had 19.6 and 21.2. And he gets a very, very banged up Cleveland team this week that's now suddenly given up the third most fantasy points to two quarterbacks.
Somehow, it's crazy.
Teddy's got a bunch of weapons. I would probably go with those over. I mean, Danny Dimes. There's just so many injuries. The Panthers. I mean, the Giants. I don't know that they scare me that much, but just like the Panthers, I think are probably going to realize like, oh yeah, we need to get back to the run. And then Jameis just week to week, I don't know what you're going to get out of him. Seattle's kind of middle of the road defense, but sometimes 4 out of 5 games, Winston's thrown the ball between 20 and 23 times. He threw it 30 times last week, but I mean, when he's slinging 20 to 25 passes and scoring 13 and a half or less in 3 out of 5 weeks, I just can't really trust that. I would look for somebody like Tua, somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, Matt Ryan, maybe against the Dolphins.
Miami,
So I would probably try to go one of those directions if any of those guys are available.
And he does bring up he can get Teddy Bridgewater. He is on waivers. The only thing that scares me about him is he got banged up by a Raiders front seven that was really good, and they have to turn around and I believe play on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken about that. So that's the only thing. That's the only thing that scares me a little bit, because he has been banged up over the past few weeks. It's part of the reason why his numbers have been down, because Drew Locks had to come in. So if he's 100% cleared, I like the matchup. But if not, it worries me a little bit.
Yeah. Fangio says he expects Bridgewater to play. It is kind of, since he is banged up, it's a short week. We've talked about Thursday games, so it is something to consider.
Yeah. If I had to go with, I'd probably go Bridgewater, then Darnold. Tua above both of them, he's available, but Bridgewater or Darnold for me, I think, out of those two. Yeah. Next up, he says Saints, Cards, and Patriots defense this week. I can't speak English. This week, rank the three. And I feel like the obvious one's got to be Patriots against the Jets, right? Like, I mean, I know the Cardinals defense has been the best overall in fantasy, I think, this year. But Zach Wilson in New England, that's hard to pass up.
That's a tough one. I've had to think through some of this, because I have a couple of leagues where I'm trying to decide between Cardinals or Patriots. And the Patriots overall just haven't been that good. They had a monster game against the Jets. But Arizona has just been so consistent, and you've got a rookie quarterback there too. That they're playing against with Houston, with Davis Mills, because Tyrod is not expected to be back. So I'm a little bit tempted to say that a slightly safer play is Arizona, because they've done so well. Again, the Patriots did have that one big week against the Jets, but otherwise they're doing a lot of 3-point weeks. I don't know if Zach Wilson has learned anything since then, or if this is just going to be even worse for him. I mean, I think both of those great options. It's hard to go wrong with either one of those, and I think those are dramatically ahead of the Saints, which I know you're getting Geno.
In Geno we trust.
Do we? I don't know. But Seattle's a tough place to play. And I don't know. It's harder for me to put the Saints in quite the same caliber as those other. But that's a good defense too. Three good options.
Yeah, I think you convinced me a little bit to go Arizona on this one. Initially, my brain is just thinking it's Patriots, Jets in New England. Like, how do you pass that up? But I'm still a little bit ticked that they gave me a whopping 5 against the last time they played Davis Mills, and that didn't sit well with me.
So I just looked up Yahoo's and I promise I didn't look this up beforehand. But since we're having this debate, I just thought about it, and I forget that they get their rankings out on Tuesday now. Anyway, but Arizona, all 5 of Yahoo's analysts in their composite panel have Arizona ranked number 1, and they have New England ranked 3 overall, and then the Saints 4. So their thinking is like mine on that. So I can see I can see what ESPN's is too, because I'm curious while we're talking. But anyway, that's how theirs goes, and I agree with them.
I think you convinced me. You convinced me on that one. Justin says, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say my instinct was Patriots too. And I will say, okay, ESPN. Let's see, 5. Let's see, gosh, they have a ton of analysts. They have like 5 out of 6 have the Cardinals ranked number 1. Matthew Berry's actually got them 2 behind the Rams defense, not the Patriots. And then once again, Patriots are 3, Saints are 5 in theirs. So it's pretty well, pretty consistent there too. Yeah.
Justin says Matt Prater, Carlson, or Nick Foles. Nick Folk. Okay, there we go. Got a little confused for a second there. But Folk's going up against the Jets. Prater has Houston, and Carlson has Philly. And even though Prater's kind of my first instinct because he's been very consistent for a very good offense, I think the chance of him just kicking 6 extra points scares me a little bit. And I've said before, Philly isn't great, but they do shock some people every now and then. So I think I would go with either Carlson or Folk, and I think I'm leaning Daniel Carlson against Philadelphia this week. I think that the Raiders are going to be forced to kick more field goals than either of the two of them. Prater's great, but if they score 42 points, he's only getting 6 out of that. So I say Carlson.
Right. Yeah. I don't like really rotating kickers in and out week to week because it's so tough to judge, game script and how it's going to go. And I know for me, it just never seems to work out well. So I think I don't know if you've already got one of them on your team or what. I would, I tend to agree with your thinking in terms of how those games would play out. And yet, I just don't know. I mean, Houston's given up the 7th most fantasy points. And then I think Philadelphia has given up the 13th, 12th fewest. And so I don't know. My inclination is just to stick with one kicker, whether you think it's Carlson or Prater, because I mean, if you start trying to rotate them in and out, for me, I think what ends up happening is I just pick their off weeks, and then I may lose a game by 7 points. Where if I had just kept, the other one going, I would have kind of kept winning. So I kind of like your thinking there, but I think I'm just more inclined to stick with Prater most of the time, just because he's in a better offense. And Carlson had, I think his floor is higher than
that's true.
Than Carlson. Carlson had a 2-point week, he had a 3-point week. So that would be my thinking there.
Yeah, I can get with that. And Justin did bring up, he's got Greg on bye, hit by, how does Judah puts it, the bye-nado is, as he always calls it. So he had to pick up one of them. So yeah, there you go. As always, thanks for checking in, Justin. Glad to have you with us as normal. Thomas H says, "Go Braves," our resident Atlanta fan with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers profile picture, and Braves are locked in 5-5 against the Dodgers. The Dodgers are throwing the bullpen game for all bullpen games right now.
Yeah, well, it was 5-2, and then the Braves brought in Luke Jackson, which never works out well. So,
ouch, Jared's hot takes for the Atlanta Braves today. Rendon Dye, thanks for showing up, man. Asks, should I pick up Logan Thomas on the waiver wire? He was just dropped. He'd either have to drop Mooney or Kadarius Toney. This is an interesting one because I know for certain leagues you can just pick up IR straight to your IR spot. So I feel like if you have that option, he'd be good to grab. If you can just because I know Yahoo, if you're picking up someone who's on IR, you can just add him immediately to your IR spot. But maybe it's filled, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not one of those leagues. Maybe you don't have IR spots. What do you think, Jared? Is dropping Mooney or Toney worth picking up Logan Thomas?
I mean, it depends on your tight end situation. I mean, when he comes back, Washington likes to throw to the tight end. Ricky Seals-Jones is subbed in really well.
Yep. 13 points last week.
Yeah. So if you need a tight end, I mean, I might be more, it's kind of tough because I mean, Mooney and Toney are kind of in different situations. Mooney's not really getting a ton of yards. I kind of prefer Toney if he's healthy, but of course now he's hurt, just like every Giant gets hurt. So he's going to miss at least one game. When they phrase it that way, he's probably going to miss more than one. And then they're going to have one and then the bye. So there's a fair chance I think there's a fair chance that he just doesn't play again until like week 11, Tony.
Yeah.
So if you're tight end needy and you can't add him straight to your waiver wire, I think that's fair to drop. I would drop probably Mooney unless you need, because I like Tony's upside better for the rest of the season. But if you're going to need someone to fill in bye weeks in the next few weeks or something, you might have to drop Tony over Mooney, just because I don't know if he's going to be back for a month,
Right. Yeah. And he does bring up right now, he's got McCaffrey in his IR already, and he does have Waller, who's been frankly kind of disappointing when it came to where he was getting drafted and how much he was going for since week 1. He just really hasn't done as great as people were expecting him to.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the tight end position is just sort of Travis Kelce and the rest. Waller, the problem with the Raiders offense is that, it's gotten more balanced this year. Ruggs is taking a step forward. Derek Carr just seems more willing for, I don't know if it's because of the development of the receivers or what, but he seems more willing to throw the ball down the field. Whereas last year it was just, and then even week 1 this year, just, locked on to Waller. Waller had 21.5 in half-point PPR in the first game. Hasn't, I guess 4 out of the last 5 weeks he's been in single digits. And he hasn't had more than 8 targets. He's typically been around 7 targets. So, but the trouble is, though, somebody like Logan Thomas, I mean, it's fine to have him as a second tight end. But, he's kind of hovering around that 10-point mark, 9 or 10 points, kind of like Waller. And with Waller, you can get the blow up game. So, I think it's fine if you're going to have Logan Thomas as a second tight end or something. But even with Waller having a down year, if he has 4 blow up games, like, you pretty much got to start him. If you don't have somebody else who's really doing significantly better, then you almost have to keep him in the lineup to see if you can get one of those 20-point games or whatever.
Yeah. So I think Logan Thomas might be worth a pickup if he's hopefully healthy, because I think Waller's bye week is next week, if I remember correctly, and I think Logan Thomas returns off of IR next week as well. So part of it is if Logan Thomas is going to be healthy, if he looks like he's going to be good to go next week, I think it's worth maybe dropping Mooney, because look, I'm the Bears fan here. Our next 3 games are against Tampa, the 49ers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then we get the Baltimore Ravens. If you think Justin Fields is going to have the time to sit back and then throw a 40-yard bomb to Mooney, I don't think that's going to happen either. So I would probably be leaning to drop Mooney, because Tony will probably come back eventually, but who knows? By the time he comes back, maybe Shepard's back to 100%, maybe Galladay's taking some of his targets. So for the short term, I would probably want to drop Mooney, but if I was looking for more of a long-term play, I'd drop Kadarius Toney, because Mooney's at least has a touchdown potential, at least by that much. So there's that. Thanks for checking in with us, Rendon. Always good to have you with us. James Zoo asks, sell D-Hop? And if so, who would be some of your trade targets? We've talked before about the Cardinals, Jared, about how they have about 50 receivers that they can use. And now they just traded for Zach Ertz, the touchdown monster from Philadelphia. What do you think, Jared? Would you sell D-Hop right now after a pretty good game last week?
Depending on who you get for him, I'd be willing to consider it. Because you look at what his game was last week. He caught 3 balls for 55 yards, but 2 of them happened to be touchdowns. And so he's got a good looking overall fantasy point line. Let's see. He's about, he's right inside the top 15 in terms of fantasy points, which, normally you would expect him. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at remaining games projected. So he is for the season. It's actually about the same thing so far. So he's sort of about right inside the top 15 in terms of what he's scored. The trouble with it is, you have to kind of be careful about who you're going out to get. Are they really, going to be able to outperform him? So it's kind of tricky. I don't, because I think there would be a limited number of guys that I would really try to go out and get. It maybe like a Justin Jefferson, who's, consistently getting double-digit targets. Half the time he's had double-digit targets. When he's not gotten double-digit targets, he's getting 8. He's not going to score probably quite as much. Adam Thielen is kind of there for that. But if you could trade up to somebody like obviously somebody like Tyreek would be, could potentially be kind of tough to get, but with Tyreek, then you get the possibility of the huge blow up games. So I think it's reasonable to try to, sell on DeAndre, but I would be careful with who you get and not try to get too cute with it, because even with more limited opportunities, it's crazy. He hasn't caught more than 6 balls in a game this year. Cool. He's done that twice, and in 4 out of the 6 games, he's caught 4 balls or fewer, which is just crazy. That's incredible. But that's how many weapons Arizona has. So I think it's reasonable to try to trade him for someone else. Just I would be careful not to get too cute with him. Or maybe if you need a running back and you could go get a running back, that might be the better way to go, as opposed to trying to trade him straight up for a receiver if you've got the receiver depth to make it work.
Right. Yeah, I think if we're talking running back, you could probably get a package of something like James Robinson and a decent wide receiver, or Darrell Henderson, and maybe I'm trying to think of a more mid-level wide receiver that you could get, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. I also think another, also parallel to Justin Jefferson, you could maybe try to get Thielen or somebody else, maybe try to do a swap. I like Thielen's upside. He gets more targets than Diop right now on the season. He's been one of my favorite players all year. That's another one I think that's interesting. But yeah, it's really hard to trade someone who has such a great name value, and in terms of fantasy points has been very good, but not exceptional, because that it just makes it complicated to try to trade him at that point. But yeah. Those are just a couple of guys that we think. Thank you very much, James, for checking in. Anuna coming in with our Naruto profile picture today. Not that I know that's not Naruto. I'm referencing the series. Just traded Waller, Zach Moss, and Justin Tucker for Kamara and Chris Boswell. He has Pitts to replace Waller as his tight end. Thoughts, Jared? What do you think? You trade, like we literally just said, Waller hasn't quite lived up to expectations, and you just got one of the best running backs in football. So what do you think, Jared?
I love that trade. As much as I love Justin Tucker, there's a lot of kickers doing well this year. That's replaceable. Zach Moss, he has more of a role this year with the Bills. He had 4 straight weeks of double-digit points, but he's not going to be blowing up unless something changes with the Bills and something happens to Singletary or something. He's not going to be blowing up. And when you've got Pitts to replace Waller, then I love that deal. Kamara is mostly still Kamara this year. He had week 2 was a rough week for him. But that's a steal. If I think if I'd have been in that league, I would have probably been pretty tempted to vote against that. But I think you got a great deal there.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I've been kind of frustrated with Waller a little bit, just with how he hasn't quite turned the targets into touchdowns and been more of a middling tight end. than I drafted him with. I think I only got him in one league, but yeah, like you said, kickers you can swap out if you need to. Zach Moss has been decent, and Kamara has been great and still mostly getting 20 targets a game. And sure, he hasn't been getting quite as many checkdowns as he did when Drew Brees was still number one, but he's still getting a solid amount of them. And 4 or 5 catches for 30, 40, 50 yards is an extra 8 points, which can do who knows what for every single game. So, yeah, I agree. I wish we had a sound clip. There was a sound clip from an old Steelers Super Bowl video of Mike Tomlin going, I like it. And if I had that sound clip, I would have played it right then. But, yes, I'm in agreement with you. I like that one a lot.
By the way, we skipped over Thomas H's comment about how he
lost. Oh, my bad.
He lost to you this week. That Waddle made the difference, and I also need to point out after my 0-4 start, I've now won 2 in a row. Which, granted, that's not very good. Still, it's 2-4. But what's important about this is that I am now after Judah Buddha started 2-0.
Yep.
He's now lost 4 straight. Yep. And I have scored more points than him, so I am now ahead of him in the standings. It's just 10th place to 11th place in a 14-team league. But look, you got to start somewhere with the comeback, and that's a good place to start, in my opinion.
Yeah. I Jalen Waddle definitely saved me. Pat McAfee had a song he did as a joke is like called the Do the Waggle Waggle. So I just changed it to the Waddle Waddle, and it was ringing in my head literally all day. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That was like I said, I'm the least deserving team to be 3-3 in that league. I have the least amount of points by far. My running backs are absolutely dead. And somehow I am still above Jared and Judah in the standings by sheer luck and Matthew Stafford. That's basically all I'm down to at this point. So, yeah, yes, Waddle did completely save me. Without him, I would have lost by about 30. So we keep this train rolling as long as we can, and we don't stop until Stafford's arm gives out. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's a fun one. Also, want to give a quick shout out to Team Drew Vando, the only undefeated team left in the Rotohackers Listener League after the intellectual madman Anthony got his first loss this week to who was it? Who knocked him off?
Let's see.
Devout Patriots. Yeah. Adam, thanks to Cole Beasley.
Just like less than a point, like 9/10 of a point. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's and Drew, I mean, that's I looked at all my leagues. I've got 21 leagues. Which is I intended to not have that many. But anyway. And I think there are four teams in my 21 leagues that are 6-0. So
wow.
So that's out of like 215 teams, because I mean 10 teams in the league and most of them 12 in one, 14 in another. So you're looking at about 215 give or take one teams, and only four of them I think are 6-0. So yeah, 6-0 is an accomplishment, because there's a ton of parity this year, and it's like most years there's just teams that are just juggernaut teams, and that they can there sometimes maybe a couple of unbeaten teams, or a team may get to like 9-0, 10-0, whatever. But this year, with so many injuries and so many other things going on, that's doing well to have made it to 6-0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well done, sir. Cayman Bowers in the comment section saying, my favorite unauthorized report is a fantasy football. Thank you very much, Cayman. Good to have you in the chat with us. Asks, where's Judah? He's on assignment tonight, as we like to say. So he's out doing mad research this week. So he comes back on Saturday just with both the greatest and most outlandish picks of all time, and maybe an Odell jersey. We'll see. Who knows what'll happen. We'll see what happens.
Maybe.
That's all the comments we got for now. So let's move into our waiver wire. And in link with our waiver wire, it's
news in the NFL today.
And more this week. I'm sure one of the number one questions that everyone's going to have is, what on earth do we do with the Cleveland Browns? For those of you who haven't noticed, Chubb is out again, still with his calf injury, and the Thursday game just isn't going to help. And then on top of that, Kareem Hunt had to get carted off this week during the Cleveland Browns game. And then there was other stuff too, like Baker Mayfield aggravating a shoulder injury. So he's got
a completely torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder.
Yeah. So the Browns inherited the 49ers offensive injury curse from last year. So Jared, the big question is going to be, Demetric Felton, the half wide receiver, half running back, and then Darius Johnson are the two Browns running backs set to play on Thursday night. And the tough thing about it is Felton has a whopping total of like 10 catches on the year and 2 carries. And then Darius Johnson has a whopping 10 carries and like a catch. So we currently have no idea exactly of who is going to start as the number one running back so far. So Jared, is there anyone that you're leaning toward one way or the other for running back? Because all of us are going to be hurting between injuries and bye weeks and everything else. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more inclined to go with Darius Johnson. He's at least proven before that he can, carry the load in a game. He doesn't do much in the receiving game, but I was looking back to last year. There's not really much in terms of this year that you can look at. But if you look back to the 2020 season, I don't remember what all the circumstances were under this game, but October 4th against Dallas, it was a 49-38 game. We can go back and see what all happened with that. Anyway, he had 13 carries. He had 95 yards. So I'm not sure if they were just beating up on the Cowboys and they put him in for some garbage time rushes, or if, Chubb was hurt. It may have been while Chubb was hurt, because I think Chubb missed some games last year. But I mean, he's proven he can carry the load, and I'm just not sure that Felton's going to be able to. I mean, he's going to get some carries and be in there to make some plays, maybe in more of like a poor man's Cordero Patterson type role. But I trust Johnson a little bit more, and even though it's not a great matchup either.
Right. Yeah. I think I agree with you there. Felton, he's using the passing game and almost none in the rushing game at all. I think it's going to be a little bit of a risk still on how much, like, for example, fab you'd put on him. But if you're in a deeper league like us, you probably are going to have to put up a decent amount of fab to grab him, because running backs are just so taken between starters and handcuffs at this point. So I agree. I think Darius Johnson is the one to grab. On the other side, with now Kadarius Toney out, as we talked about earlier, can you trust any Giants wide receiver right now, Jared? Be it Shepard, be it questionable, quote unquote, Galladay, or is Darius Slayton going to show up for 3 weeks again?
I mean, I don't know that you can ever really trust their health, but in the 3 full games that Shepard has played, his worst week was last week against the Rams, where he had 12.6 points. He had 20.8 in the opener, 13 in week 2. He's getting, double-digit targets.
Yeah.
He's not Daniel Jones he doesn't really have much else to throw to, and regardless of who was in there, he seemed to have a good connection with Shepard. So especially this week, and I think Shepard, even as long as that connection looks like it's going well, is pretty trustworthy apart from injury risk. But Yeah, especially this week. I think if he's out there in your league, he's probably the best. He's 52% owned, so I think he's going to be probably your best pickup if he's available.
Yeah. On another note, we talked about one of our biggest frustrations for the entire year, and I agree, Shepard's definitely the number one out of that. But man, I am getting so sick of trying to figure out what on earth to do with the Ravens, man. Lamar has the most yards, but then they give touchdowns to just anybody. It's like, you get a touchdown, Devonta Freeman gets a touchdown. And now Latavius Murray's questionable going into this week with it looks like an ankle, not a terrible ankle sprain, but it's possibly significant enough for us to get at least worried minimally about it. Oh my goodness, Jared, what do we do with Ravens running backs at this point? It's getting really frustrating to watch Lamar, Le'Veon, Latavius, and Devonta Freeman all get 8 and 9 carries.
Yeah, I'm staying away from it unless I absolutely have to go with one, and then you hope Latavius Murray falls into the end zone and gets a touchdown for you. Devonta, like you said, he had 9 carries last week. He had 7 combined in 4 games up until that. I guess 5 games. I don't know if he was active for that first game or not. But, he had 9 carries, 53 and a touchdown. I think that's just a good situation to avoid unless you're just really desperate. And I realize that this week you may be really desperate, but even then, I think there's a lot of desperation options that are on about the same level, in terms of the Browns running back situation. We can talk about, who maybe are some other possibilities. So one of them is depending on what happens with Alex Collins it may be time to go back to Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny,
oh my goodness,
could be starting for the Seahawks. It's Carson's on IR. Alex Collins is banged up. So Rashad Penny, if you're in a desperation situation at running back, that's a possibility there. I still want to call them the Redskins. I don't know how long that's going to take for me to get. I just randomly flash back to like calling the Chargers San Diego. So
absolutely. I think I have a problem with it, and then I realized you've been watching football like twice as long as me.
Right. Yeah, literally. So Washington, we've got a sort of a mess there where Antonio Gibson is having some injury problems. So, McKissick got more work last week. McKissick is just like, it's on an alternating schedule where he's either going to score a point for you or he's going to get you 15. So, but if Gibson is, going to stay banged up, then, McKissick's role may, stay a little bit bigger. Even Patterson. I mean, I think there's probably a chance Gibson could could miss the game. Maybe you've even got Jarrett Patterson in there on early down. So I think he's someone else if you're desperate at running back this week. So I think there are a fair number of slightly more desperate plays beyond what Cleveland's offering there with guys like Penny, with guys like McKissick or Patterson. There was somebody else I think I was looking at, but I may have back to him in a minute. But the point is you may have to get pretty creative this week if you're anything like some of my teams with some of the injury and bye weeks that you have.
Yeah. Yep. It's gonna be a mess for sure, but we will try to help. We're here to try to help you get through it. This absolute running back wasteland at this point. And do you think Gibson is actually going to get deactivated? He just got an MRI, and he seems like the guy who would be like sure, my arm is literally poking out of my arm is literally poking out of the side. How many more carries can I get for the rest of the game? Like, do you think they'll actually shut him down finally? Should Gibson owners be very concerned? I'll say that.
I would be a little bit worried. I mean, especially with, Washington. I mean, Washington's gotten a couple of wins, so they're 2-4. It's not like they're 0-6 or something like that. But they're also at the Packers this week. So that's part of what worries me is just falling behind into a deep hole, and then all of a sudden you're seeing lots of McKissick because that's really what they need on the field anyway. So McKissick is only I really hate trying to play that game of trying to guess what games he's really gonna see the touches in, but being in Green Bay seems like a pretty good one to guess on. So I will see.
Yeah. I'm pretty stinking worried about Gibson right now. Whenever people have an MRI, that just screams they're going straight to the IR for me. And I think that if he did actually take the time to try to let it heal fully, I believe the average recovery time is about 2 or 3 months if they did just completely shut him down. So McKissick, if he's available anywhere, because we've said running back waiver wire is a wasteland. If he is available anywhere, I think he could be just absolutely huge to try to grab in as many places as you can if Gibson does officially get shut down. And one more before we go into our personal waiver wire pickups this week. You're the Colts fan, Jared. T.Y. got banged up last week. He might not play, but Paris Campbell's on IR. So would you grab T.Y. everywhere? You called it. He had a good game against Houston last week, as he typically does. So what do you think? Should T.Y. be grabbed everywhere? Or as Judah Buddha says, will he be injured once again due to old age?
Well, he could be, but that was going to be another one of my recommended wide receiver pickups for those of you that are like me who may have a team with, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, and someone else. I mean, we're literally
Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen,
Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I mean, I have teams where literally all of my receivers are on bye. So Shepard is my top pickup, but a couple other guys. One of them's T.Y., and again, that's not a guarantee that he plays, but if he does, it's not like. It's not sounding shaky as to whether, one play might force him out of the game. I think he's a good option. Another one that I loved in the preseason, and then it was just crushing disappointment for the first 2 games of the year at 1.9 points and 1.8 points, respectively, through the first 2 weeks, was Marquez Callaway, who has finally started to come on. It's still the volume is shaky. He's not getting a ton. I think that's just going to be how it is with Jameis Winston. But over the past 3 weeks, 12 points, 8 points, 22.5 points last week. He had 85 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Again, if you're desperate for some wide receivers this week, I think those guys are some pretty good plays. That wide receiver, it's just a different situation than running back. There's plenty of other guys, and maybe you've got some different ones that you can plug in there for a week. It's not the wasteland that running back is, and you can get some. Almost anyone at wide receiver can luck into a solid game for you.
Yeah, and Callaway's only 35% owned or something like that, which is crazy. And this could be a guy that you can use for multiple weeks because his passing schedule coming up is nice. Includes Seattle, Tampa, I believe Atlanta as well. Some of the worst pass defenses in football right now for the next few weeks. That can be a guy who doesn't just fill in a role for you, the next game. He could fill it in for multiple weeks as well. For me, wide receivers kind of along the same lines where it's just kind of a mix of people who can get you 7 maybe and also 3. I know a lot of people possibly are hyped on Van Jefferson. Not a fan of it, just with his inconsistencies. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a bad week last week overall, but he also had to go up against Cincinnati. Not loving him against Los Angeles this week, but I think it could work due to the fact that the Lions don't have anyone else to throw to outside of like Hawkinson and D Swift. So I think he's also an emergency one that you could grab if you're in a situation like us where we have absolutely nobody to go pick up. Jared, another one I'm seeing. What about running back? Do you have any? I know we talked about a couple of them, but is there anyone else you see out there? I know Bolden is projected to score some of the highest, which we'll see about how that works out. But granted, they are playing the Jets. What do you think? Are there any other running backs out there that we can grab in desperation?
I think I kind of covered most all of mine with, taking a chance on some guys like, Penny to see if Alex Collins is out. Possibly, McKissick is out there in some leagues. If you're really desperate, maybe Patterson. Beyond that, there's some other guys that are out there in a handful of leagues. I've seen Michael Carter floating around. He's actually only 52% rostered, but in my pay leagues, he's only available in like 3. So there's a tremendously disproportionate level of ownership because people have got him in the pay leagues. But if he's out there, I mean, I know it's New England, but at least, he's getting double-digit carries, goal line carries, and, a little bit of work in the pass game. So beyond that, it starts getting pretty thin at running back. Somebody like Naheem Hines, has had 3 straight weeks of between 0.1 and 2.7 points. I don't think I really want to gamble on him. I know Mark Ingram's had, a couple of decent weeks, 2 straight weeks where he had double-digit carries, but he hasn't been able to do much with them. And it's Arizona; they're probably going to be, playing from behind pretty fast. Kenneth Gainwell, kind of the same situation. He's had some good weeks. The last 2 have been just abysmal. So it's really tough to start looking and finding somebody that you feel like is going to be able to give you a decent game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to move over to tight end for a second. I think one of the biggest ones is the guy, fortunately, I grabbed to help bring me to a win. Thank you very much, Ricky Seals-Jones. Still only 30% owned in fantasy. 2 straight games. 2 straight solid games for him. And I think in terms of the tight end landscape, he's someone who's going to get you a couple catches and possibly a touchdown, especially with Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry, just with so many question marks floating above him. If you're looking for somebody if you're in a deeper league and you just need one tight end to last you a week, like if Dawson Knox is out, I think 2 boomer bust guys that you could grab are CJ Uzomah, who got a touchdown again. Granted, he's playing Baltimore, but if Baltimore shuts down on all the receivers, they try to lock up on Jamar. They try to lock up on Higgins. I don't know. Uzomah might be able to slip through. I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I'm sorry. And then the other one of my favorite tight ends to just say is Moelly Cox has got a touchdown in 2 out of his last 3 games. So he's also, I think, a really good tight end to grab if you're in a more desperate situation there. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, there's a league or 2 where I'm probably going to have to turn to Moelly. So yeah, I think he's worth a shot.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's through most of them. Jared, is there anyone else you want to bring up? Any players we missed? Kickers? I know we talked about quarterbacks earlier. Anything else you want to bring up?
I think we've pretty well covered it all. Just you're just going to have to this week, if you're anything like my teams, you're just going to have to do the best you can. And I had a team last week where it's one of my better teams, and I've got a good roster. I forget how it worked out, but I was able to. There was somebody I was able to pick up. I had to just drop my kicker that I didn't really care about, and so I didn't have a kicker in there. So I waited to see, like, okay, am I going to be close to winning this game? Yeah. And if so, maybe I'll drop somebody and fill in that kicker spot in order to try to win the game. Well, my opponent scored like 150 points. I had like about 100, and so it wasn't close. There was no point in me putting a kicker in, so I just left the kicker spot blank and kept my position guys. So that's, I guess, kind of what I would say to if you're having some of the same dilemmas as me, where you're gonna have to drop someone that you really don't want to drop in order to just fill a spot in the lineup. I would maybe kind of wait. Maybe if you can drop your kicker, or if you don't have a good defense and you can drop the defense and just pick up another one if you have to. Maybe wait and see if your game is going to be close, if you're going to have a chance to win through those early games, and then pick up a defense or kicker later. So
sound advice from, as we like to call him around here, the absolute stud, ladies and gentlemen.
Not if you look at the Rotohackers Listeners League this year. Some of my other teams are looking pretty good. But,
hey, did Tom Brady win the Super Bowl every single year? No, but he's still the GOAT. Just saying.
That's a great point. I like that point. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
There we go. Also, I completely forgot to notice that one other thing that happened in the news is that the Ravens starting left tackle Ronnie Stanley's out for the season after undergoing ankle surgery. So another reason not to try to get another Ravens running back if you don't have to. It's and while we're on it, let's just once again salute Derrick Henry just for being an absolute monster. I don't think I can. I saw somebody else say this. I don't remember if it was like one of the more famous analysts or just someone else, but they said, I'm just never taking anyone but Derrick Henry as the number one pick anymore. There we go.
I mean, he had that rough first week, and then since then, I mean, my goodness, it's just been. He's just been rolling off. I don't know what he's averaged. I can't average these up in my head real quick. But he's basically, he had a light week this week with 20 carries. He had been getting, averaging north of 30 for 4 straight weeks, and anywhere between 113, 118 yards. 3 of the last 5 weeks, he's had 3 touchdowns.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, last 3 weeks. His point total just keeps going up, 24.7, 31, 34.6, just an absolute monster. And in an offense, you think about where, A.J. Brown stayed hurt, Julio Jones has stayed hurt.
Yeah.
So it's not like they have this overall juggernaut offense. I mean, he's just that good. So,
yeah. And speaking of Julio, he kind of came back a little bit, maybe not in statistics, but he looked good at least.
Well,
last
and then he got hurt again, and then AJ Brown looked good and at least came out of the game healthy. So Brown had 7 catches for 91 yards, and Julio is already again looking like let's see, he's questionable. So Vrabel said he's day to day. Yeah, that whole Julio thing is not working out super great so far for him or the Titans
or his fantasy owners. Let's throw that in too.
Or his fantasy owners. Yeah.
And I just checked. Derrick Henry is averaging 130 yards a game this season.
I'm sorry, Judah McNeil, but you know what? I'm still the best.
That shouldn't even be a clip. That should just be our intro. We should just make that our intro.
Yeah, we should play it back to back. The intro, then the theme, just from here on out. Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm also going to pile on since Judah's gone. Well, first of all, I think I've pretty well established that I don't mind, torturing him even when he's here. But I'm not going to change anything when he's going either. So I hope no one listened to him when he was telling you to go out and get Randall Cobb, and inexplicably telling you to go out and get Randall Cobb after that 21.4 game, after he came off of a 0-point game the week before. So, because the last 2 weeks, he followed that 21.4 game up with a 4-point game, and last week he had nothing. I'm not sure if he was okay. So I guess he was actually in there. He just wasn't targeted.
Yeah. Nope.
So zero targets. So I don't. Again, that's one where I never understood the fascination or love affair with Randall Cobb.
He's a Packers fan, Jared. He's stuck on nostalgia.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently so. So, hopefully no one did that. Now, I will say they play the Redskins. There I go again. My brain is just all of a sudden reverting back to 2 years ago. So, they play Washington, that has given up the second most points to wide receivers this season. So if he is going to have a good game, maybe this could be it. But that don't mistake that for me saying that you should start him. Anyway.
Judah eats crow.
We haven't played that one in a while. Too bad he's not here for it.
I like it. Yeah, well, he can tune in and watch. That's good.
Well, we got one more comment from DeAndre Swift season, and as a Bears fan, and as a Georgia fan, I like that a lot. Got Hunt and J. Rob at running back. Both can't play, but I got D'Ernest. I do have Thielen, Debo, AJ Brown, and Adams to give up for a running back rest of season. Should I do it, or just pick up a waiver running back and hope? 5-1? So last waiver. So okay, so this isn't a rolling waiver. Okay, so it's new every week. I wouldn't trade Debo or Adams for sure. Thielen might be your best bet due to the fact that he's been more touchdown dependent than yards dependent. But I kind of like him rest of season, and AJ Brown's going to be hard to trade away for a quality running back due to his injuries and, up and down starts of the season. But Jared, what do you think? Hunt and J-Rob, do you trade one of your wide receivers, try to get someone for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you said there. I wouldn't want to give up Devontae Adams. I wouldn't want to give up, would prefer not to give up Debo or Thielen, but I think the market for AJ Brown is probably going to be pretty limited because I only have him in a league or two, and I've tossed some offers out there and haven't, been really able to give him away. So I think you would have to do it with one of those. I would try to go out and get a running back. And I mean, I would even be willing to trade Adams if you could get a running back of that caliber. Like if you can go get
Derrick Henry,
well, I don't know if anybody's going to give up Derrick Henry for anything. But if you could go out and get, Zeke maybe.
Or what about Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor. I'd maybe do it for Jonathan Taylor. That's tough, but and Adams is actually down a little bit, this season too so far.
Yeah.
He's looked a little more human. Aaron Rodgers, I saw where Aaron Rodgers has one of the worst completion percentages in football when he's being pressured. And so, Devontae's, he's had, a couple of monster games, but then he's also had half of his games have been averaging about 9 points. He's had an 8, a 9, a 10. So, he's had 2 big monster games, but in your situation there, we don't know how long Kareem Hunt's going to be out.
Yeah.
And I don't, and, when Chubb comes back, I don't know how that role's going to work with who's going to be getting the second back carries, because Johnson's not a Kareem Hunt type,
right.
So I don't know if they'll mix in, other guys more or what. But
yeah, or maybe Felton ends up taking it at that point because he's the receiving back between him and Ernest.
Right. I think there's a possibility that I might like Ernest better for this 1 week or 2 weeks or however long Chubb is out.
Yeah.
And then kind of maybe pivot to Felton. So if you don't get Ernest and you get Felton, he might be the better play for a month or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Kareem's going to be out for a while. And if that's really all you've got at running back, then you're really hurting there. I would definitely go try to get a wide receiver, or I'm sorry, try to go get a running back.
All right, so let me list off a couple. Would you try to trade for Aaron Jones?
I don't know if I would give up Devontae for him. The thing that worries me a little bit about Aaron Jones.
What about maybe Thielen in a bench package for Aaron Jones?
Yeah, I would. He worries me a little bit in that A.J. Dillon's getting a lot more carries, and it seems like it's going to more of what they did, in the past with Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
But with just the lack of running backs, I mean, you still got to value him pretty high. He just wouldn't be my first choice over. I mean, someone like Jonathan Taylor or Zeke, or even. I know James Robinson's stats could skew low again, like when Carlos Hyde is back. But like right now, I think I would probably prefer James Robinson to Aaron Jones.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Well, there you go. DeAndre Swift season. Thanks for your question. And Judah McNeil. Wow. Even though he's not with, even though his video isn't with us, his still image, his still profile picture is here instead. He asked, who are your favorite waiver wire pickups? And he mentioned, we already talked about one of his favorites was Demetric Felton, even though we're leaning Johnson a little bit more. And also he brings up Denver's defense as a good streaming defense this week. Who does Denver get again?
They play Cleveland. They play
Cleveland. That's a good one. A lot of people are going to look and see Cleveland gives up what's the least amount of points to defense and not remember half their team is injured. And also, as I like to bring up, they're playing on Thursday night. If there is any amount of parity in the football world that's going to happen, it happens on a Thursday night. Yep. So quick recap, I guess, of the people we said. Dearness Johnson, take a flying Rashad Penny maybe. T.Y. Hilton as a possible grab, wide receiver. Let me think. We said a quarterback. Sterling Shepard's another one. Sterling Shepard. Tua Tagovailoa, if you're looking for a streaming quarterback, he's one of the best ones out there to get. And Ricky Seals-Jones at tight end. Jared, any others that I missed that we talked about?
I think that pretty well covers him.
All right, sounds good. And DeAndre says, thanks for the answer. Have a good one. Thanks, DeAndre. Thanks for coming in. Good to have you with us. You have a good one too, man. For anyone else still watching, this is the Rotohackers Podcast. We typically stream Monday or Tuesday nights, but consistently we are streaming every Saturday afternoon at around 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern. And that's when we get to talk about a lot of stardom, sit-em stuff, any trade questions. That's when we typically have our biggest one. We also have Judah Buddha, who's not here today with us, but he just dropped a comment as well. So he's still with us. Be sure to check us out then. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You've been on YouTube before. You've heard the whole spiel. I'm not going to sit here for a minute long and make you listen to us shelling out our own content. But there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Rotohackers Podcast. Jared, you got anything else you want to say for tonight?
Good luck on the waiver wire. My old go-to.
There we go. Perfect. It's fitting and perfect. We'll see you guys next time on the one and only Rotohackers Podcast, the unauthorized reporters of fantasy football news and information. And Judah McNeil, thanks, guys. You're the best. Well, you're the best too, Judah McNeil.
Well, he says thanks, guy. So
thanks,
it doesn't. He doesn't
specify.
Doesn't specify who he's talking about.
That's very true. We're gonna have to get the truth out of him and figure out what he's mentioning there. See y'all next time.
I'm sorry, Judah McNeil, but you know what? I'm still the best.